Hey guys, it's Molly. I wanted to go back to my roots and do a colander pour tonight, but I wanted to do it in all metallics. I did this probably like a year and something ago, and I really loved the effect of it. I'm gonna use Arteza metallics this time. I'm also gonna show how I mix the paints at the end and how I layer the cup. I have a lot of questions about that. And I'll kind of walk you through some tips and tricks of how to get your colander pour better, the right consistencies to use, the right colander to use, things like that. So hopefully you can make your own colander pour that you love. Let's go.
Before we get started, I wanted to show the colander itself. So it's got no holes in the center, these tiny little lips around, and rather large holes. I got this one from Walmart, but you can get it from a ton of different places as long as it meets those qualifications. No holes in the center helps create the balloon effect, and the little lip helps keep it off the canvas, but allows for paint to go through the sides. So some of them have like a solid rim, and that one doesn't work as well. All right.
Okay, so I have my ounces of paint here. I can't fit my hand into the cup this way, or into the colander this way, but I try to get as close as possible. And I want to start pouring around this outer rim right here, and then I work my way into the center. I really want what's on the bottom of my cup, which is for me white in this one, to really come out in the center, because that's what's going to create that effect. So I'm going to start pouring right around the edge, and then when I can, I want to do it into rings. So I want to see rings coming out. So I can already tell I don't have a ton of, there's my white. I was going to say I don't have a ton of white coming out, but there it is. And it doesn't matter if you get straight in the center, because all of that's going to come out. So this one looks like it might be a little monotone with the colors that I chose, but I really wanted to do one with the metallics. Maybe I should have chosen a metallic black, or maybe even some more gray to layer in between, because the gold, the copper, and the bronze look very similar. But we'll see. We'll see what comes out. I'm all for accepting the painting for what it gives you. So I'm going to let this sit for a second, and then I'm just going to lift up very slowly, and I'm watching all the paint kind of drip out of here, and it's those drips that are going to make that design. So I hold it here until all that paint comes out, and then I move it out of the way. And there we go. I've got some beautiful designs around here. Now, my white, because when I was rotating it around, it didn't make it over here, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. So I just popped any air bubbles right there. Now let me stretch. So I'm gonna try to stretch so that I can keep a little bit of the outside design. You don't want to go too fast. I have spun these before. Some people asked about that, and that is super fun to do. I just didn't have my spinner and everything set up. I use a cake stand to spin. So I'm just working this paint really right now, just around the edges. And so I've said that some of the important parts are the way that you layer the paints, the pouring medium, but tilting this is almost just as important. So I'll show you, because I don't mind altering my artwork to show you guys some things. So what I'm doing right now, hopefully you can see it, hopefully it's on camera, is just moving this paint around. This outside design here, you will want to, I shouldn't say want to, but if you're moving it around in a circle like this, right? This is all gonna start to feather and fan out. I like it when my lines come straight off the canvas all the way around. And when the way that I get that effect is bringing all the paint back to the center, then rotating and going again. So I'll show you what the difference is. So if I were to bring the paint back to the center, I'm waiting for that design to go, and then I bring it down. And I'm not yet going off the canvas. Then I bring it back to the center, then I bring it down. So I'm always moving in kind of a circle. Then I bring it down. And I actually had, this was almost the perfect amount of paint for what I was going for. Then I bring it down. And again, I haven't gone off the canvas yet. Now I think right here I'm going to start going off. Bring it back. I'm trying to do this so I can keep you in focus, or in camera. It's much harder this way. Okay, so bring the paint back. Now I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. I'm actually really happy with the amount of paint that was on here. And I'll get my edges, like I see that there's some not covered there. I'll worry about that and get that later. And if your lines get a little bit wonky or stretched out, it doesn't matter. It's okay. Who's gonna know? Except you. So what I try not to do in the first go round, I try not to get this circular portion off the canvas yet. So I'm gonna tilt this back, kind of a hard tilt, back to the center. Now I'm gonna move this on down this way. Just circling on around till I can get it all over. And you guys let me know in the comments, have you tried this? Are you having problems with it? I know a lot of people have contacted me about the pouring medium, and the gloss is important. The thickness is important. And the colander that you use. I've seen people get this design and it's beautiful. And I'm proud of them. But for a lot of people, if you're trying this and you're not using the right colander, or at least the one that I use, I don't know if there is a right colander, but if you're not using the same one, I can't promise what the effect will be. Yeah, this is really pretty. Love the design right there. It almost swirls into it, and then the big balloon in the center. Again, I wish I would have had just a little bit more contrast for that part in the center, but you know, happens. And I actually like, let me do this so that you can still see it here. I like keeping the stripy outside on this one. A lot of times I pour that off, but I actually really like it on this one. It gives it some dimension because the center is, oh yeah, that's really cool. Really, really cool. I'm just gonna try to stretch, I think, this part right here just a little bit more. And then, like I said, I'll come back and tilt to my edges. So I think maybe this is all out in a circle, maybe that right there. So there's my paint, it's pushing down in the center. There we go. I don't want to lose all those striations that are on the side there, because I really like those. Gosh, I hope you guys are in camera. Whoops, if you're not. So now I'm just stretching design to get what I want. Like I said, I don't want to go all the way off with the circle. I want to keep my circle. Also, if any of your paints, that's another thing, if your design automatically gets messed up, it's normally that one of your paints was a different consistency, which means one of them was thicker or thinner than the other. I try to keep these about the same consistency. These metallics looked maybe just the tiniest bit too thin, just because the design in the center, and metallics react a little bit differently, just because the design in the center didn't come out exactly the way that it normally does. But I really like this piece. So I will show you the design, and then I'll show you the dried result. Okay, so here is that beautiful design that happens in the center. I actually got 2 rows of them this time, which is really, really cool. And then there's all those lines. on the outside that I managed to keep. And again, spinning this would have given a, oh my gosh, it looks like a spiraling vortex in, and then the balloon in the center. I wish I'd had a little bit more definition in the balloon. And I wish maybe my white was like a little bit thicker, but I think this is gonna dry great as metallic. So I will show you guys the dried result. All right, guys, here is the dried result. You can see all the beautiful designs are there. That one's gorgeous. I love that one. Looks like a little candy. But I think maybe my paints were just a little bit thin even. The metallics. I gotta make the metallics a little bit thicker. But what's really cool, let me see if I can get this on camera. So from this angle, you see how much white is there? It's like an optical illusion. And I love the spiral that happened in the middle. So bunch of white. As you tilt it up, that white goes away and all that metallic comes through. I like the metallic balloon in the center and the little extra little candy pieces. I really, really enjoy this piece. Well, I hope you guys do too. All right, a lot of you guys always ask about this part when I'm doing a colander pour, so I thought, I've done it in multiple videos at the end, but I thought I would do it here. So I'll mix one of these and then I'll show you how I layer the cup as well. I'm using the Arteza Metallics here. You can use any colors that you want that are acrylic paint. They'll have different bodies, and so the ratios that I use may be different for what you use. It really just depends. So I'm gonna go ahead and put, and that should be about enough because I'm gonna do 6 colors here, 6 cups, and I'm really only gonna need enough paint for a 16-inch round, so I don't need too much. This mixture here that I have made, and you can see the consistency, this is pouring medium, this is not white paint, but this is floetrol. And so it's this right here, floetrol, and it is gloss medium and varnish. Thick paint and this medium right here are what I think creates the design, as well as my colander that I use, the specific one. But I've mixed that 50-50 together and created this mixture. The creative inspirations is from Jerry's Artorama. If you're buying it online, it is rather expensive because they make you buy 4 of those big bottles. Liquitex also makes a brand. I'm going to try out Golden's Gloss Medium and see if that works. So when in a pinch, just find some type of gloss medium and I think that should work. So what I'm gonna do, I start normally with 1-to-1. So to get a good idea, you have to kind of beat that down there. But I start 1-to-1, so I'm going to put about 1 part paint in here. And then I'm just going to mix this together. And it's going to be very thick. This is not the end result. But I start here because everybody uses a different type of paint. So if you start 1-to-1, you normally can't go wrong with adding more pouring medium, but it's much harder to go backwards. So this is extremely thick still. See, it doesn't even pour really off of the stick. So that's too thick. So I'm gonna add some more pouring medium, maybe 1 more part. And it normally ends up being, for most paints, about a 1-to-2 ratio. Now from here, there are multiple things that you can do. You can either, so see this is still kind of thick, you can at this point just add a tiny, tiny bit of water, or you can continue adding pouring medium. Now, I know that this pouring medium is thicker because the Creative Inspirations is thicker than, say, using GAC 800 by itself or even floetrol by itself. So I know that I'm gonna need, for these paints, I can see already, I'm gonna need just a little bit more pouring medium.
And then at this point, when I get to a ratio, you know, of 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 paint to pouring medium, I will just add water because I don't want to add so much pouring medium because it will only be as thick as the pouring medium you're using, you know? So I'm just gonna add just a tiny little bit of water to that. And you can also see the color changed a little bit. That's because the pouring medium starts out as this almost semi-opaque white, but it dries transparent. So just adding that tiny little bit of water there almost got me to where I want to be. And you could have stopped at 1 to 2 and just added a little bit of water for consistency as well. So either or, if you want to make your paint stretch a little bit further, you could maybe add more pouring medium. If you're using craft paints, this ratio is going to be very different because craft paints are thin to start out. So one more tiny little. You don't want to overshoot because too thin and the design for the colander pour won't hold. Scrape your sides always. When you check your consistency, only come about right there. So that is actually looking pretty good. That's how thick I keep this. A mound that stays a mound for a little while and dissipates back into the paint. Okay, so now I'm going to pour the paints into the cup. And I start with white on the bottom, and you'll want to put a good portion of white in there. Here, I'm just going to go ahead. Should have maybe made a little bit more white to go with. So, So that's a pretty decent portion of white there. If you have any air bubbles, you can tap, excuse me, on the table, or you can let the paint sit. You don't want the air bubbles because they will create kind of these little pops of different speckles of colors. I mean, you might want it. It might be interesting. So the way that I'm going to layer this, and you can layer this any way you want. I do it this way because it creates an interesting design. But I'm going to pour down the sides. Now you'll want to think about a couple of different things. You don't want colors to mix together too much, right? So I'm going to try to contrast my colors here. So I'm going to go next to this, I'm going to go with this darker color here. Then I'm going to pour my gold. And I want a good portion of gold on this. So now I'm going to come back around the other side and do down the other side the other colors. I mean, the same colors, but you could layer them differently or the same. You can do really whatever you want. Make this painting kind of your own thing. I pour down the sides when I'm further away from the bottom of the cup so that they don't mix together. But you can see here, the colors are not mixing together at all. Let me get it a little bit closer for you. Let me angle. There we go. Hopefully you can see that a little bit better. So now I'm going to come back in with my black here. I'm going to come down the same side over here. So I'm just pouring straight down the side. You see how thick that is. I'm going to scrape off that last little bit for the top. So see, my copper and my gold color, they're pretty similar. So you want to try to get, I maybe should have made just a little bit more of that gray color for more contrast, and I'm just going to keep layering this way until I've got all the paint out of the cups. And that's basically all I do for a colander pour. And you could keep twisting this cup around. You could keep layering different ways. The most important part is that it's thick and that it's contrasting. The rest of it doesn't really matter as much. So I'm going to fill this last little portion up to get my, 11 ounces out of here, and then I'll get you set up. Well, I guess you guys have already seen it, right? You've already seen the pour, but I'm going to go ahead and set up the canvas and All right, you guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you found this helpful. Happy painting. Bye.